千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. So now, without further ado, let's continue and conclude with Tao Te Ching 25. As a recap, the title for this chapter is Formlessly Created, a reference to the Tao and all things that originate from the formless essence of the void. Now, the formlessness of the Tao is only a starting point of the chapter. Lao Tzu goes on from there to talk about how the Tao is circular and how vast it is to contemplate the infinity of the Tao. As we have seen, these topics have a practical side to be applied to life. All of these implications of the Tao have real life effects. If we understand them better, we also understand the world better. Here is a quick look as a recap at the chapter. We went ahead and divided it up into sections. The first section, as I said, starts out with the Tao being formless and then goes into the circular nature. And in section 2, the second section, it goes on to describe the circular motion passing in front of us, receding from view, and then returning. Then we go into another important topic, which is about the 4 levels of existence. That is, human beings as the sovereign, the Tao itself, heaven, and earth. And this is usually talked about in the order starting with human beings, and then the earth, and then heaven, and the Tao itself. So we were able to go through all that, and we arrived at the very last line last time, which says Tao follows the laws of nature. That is the final level of existence, and all the levels connect to each other. So here's another look as a recap at the levels that incorporate one another. We have the domain of existence, and within, to the left and in the center of the overlapping views, the sovereign represents you because you are the sovereign of your life. We live in the world, we live in the earth, on the earth, so we're encapsulated within the world, which is earth. The world itself is within the universe, or the cosmos, or heaven. And then finally, everything we're talking about is within the Tao. So the four greats, the Tao is great, heaven is great, the cosmos, earth is great, the world, and the sovereign is great. That's you and me. So we previously talked about the importance of the sovereign. Although we are small in comparison to the vastness of the world, which is in turn small compared to the vastness of heaven, and the cosmos itself is nothing compared to the infinity of the Tao. Although that is the case, the fact remains that your consciousness, that is your perspective, your point of view, without you at the center of it all, none of the other levels mean very much because you are not around to observe, to think, to comment on anything. So, this is singled out by Laozi for special attention. And we talked about the connection among the four different levels of reality or existence itself. This is in the context of how human beings follow the earth. There's a couple of different interpretations to that, and both are equally important. The first is that we observe the generosity, the nurturing nature of the earth. It provides sustenance to us. It gives us shelter against the elements. So, inspired by these virtues, human beings aspire to follow the earth in terms of being just as generous and giving and nurturing as the earth itself. The other context, also important, is that we must observe the contour, the shape of the earth in living our lives. We don't randomly just choose any place to live. We pick and choose a place that is conducive for taking up residence, for dwelling. And the earth provides natural boundaries like rivers, mountains that have become the geographical boundaries for different tribes of humans. And that is still true today. The earth itself responds to the changes in heaven, like the seasonal changes, and therefore, when the seasons change, so does the earth. So do all the living things, the myriad things upon the earth. And we know that heaven itself does not transition arbitrarily. It follows certain Tao. There is a way about it, and therefore we say that heaven follows the Tao. And finally, the Tao is synonymous with nature, so we can say that the Tao follows nature, nature follows the Tao, or the Tao follows itself. And this is similar to the idea that things can spawn or occur spontaneously in nature, even though we human beings look at how something coming from nothing with some skepticism. The latest scientific findings actually tell us that this is happening all the time at the subatomic level in the quantum form. But back to the Tao. Another extremely important interpretation for the final line is similar to the first interpretation we talked about for the first line. So I said that in the first line would begin with humans emulating the generosity, the nurturing nature of Earth. So in the final line, the very last interpretation is that when we say Tao follows the laws of nature, it has important implications on Tao cultivation for us. Here's what I mean by that. We follow the Tao, and the Tao follows nature. Therefore, Tao cultivation is about cultivating the natural. And what does it mean when we say we want to cultivate naturalness? Well, everything we do as Tao cultivators revolves around the inherent goodness in walking the natural path. So humans, we use the soft approach because that's how we see nature itself. Water is the softest thing, and yet it overcomes all. To be natural is to use the soft, the light touch, and be gentle. The soft approach means we don't force people or things or events. That will be counterproductive. We have seen how people try to change others, and we have seen them being counterproductive and getting bad results. It never works, and it creates resentment. So the soft approach is to let people be who they are. We can provide guidance, suggestions, maybe a nudge here and there, but never domination or force. Then, earth. To cultivate the natural in this context is to be protective of the environment, which is the earth. And this means living in harmony with it, not exploiting it, not trying to control it, but to be part of it. As Lao Tzu says in Tao Te Ching 16, we should bear witness to the myriad of things, to see them being active, watch for their return. Tao Te Ching 16 says, everything flourishes, each returns to its root. And furthermore, Lao Tzu says in a chapter that we haven't reached yet, in Tao Te Ching 29, the world is a sacred instrument. One cannot control it. So what we're saying here is echoed in other chapters of the Tao Te Ching. This is all part of the same theme, to be natural and be in nature when we cultivate the Tao, and that allows us to harmonize with the earth. Then, heaven. Maintain awareness of the transitions and changes in nature, because all of nature, the totality of the earth, is following heaven and getting their cues from the changes in heaven. And we, in life, looking at ourselves as a natural part of nature, it is about realizing and accepting all living things go through phases of life. And therefore, it is not any different for you and me. We're the same. We're all living things. We have various phases that we are going through. So to be natural is to embrace that, is to enjoy the current phase that we're going through right now so we can experience it to the utmost. That's the Tao. Finally, the Tao itself. To move with the natural flow of events without forcing anything. And this is a primary teaching in the Tao. The wisdom is that the more you and I resist the way things are, the more we stray from the naturalness of being and the Tao itself. So, our task is to discern insights based on quiet observations of everything around us, which includes everyone around us. So, this is about discovery of wisdom through those observations, and that wisdom will inform us to be patient with ourselves and others. That too is part of being natural. So all of this together is Tao follows the laws of nature, inspiring humans to do the same. So now we have reached the final interpretation in the last line of this particular chapter. It is time for us to try to bring everything together as one graphic, one that hopefully will encapsulate all the concepts that Lao Tzu has been trying to convey to us. So bring everything together that we have learned, starting with the image of a sage in quiet contemplation and observation of nature. Now, in the distance, there are mountains in this image. This is the first connection. Humanity, you and I, we must live and work within the constraints of Earth. We live in places with conditions favorable to us. So imagine perhaps in a valley, the valley is shielding us from cold weather, providing fertile soil, with a river running through the middle of it, flowing streams of melted snow from the surrounding mountains that feed into it. So that imagery is something that is recurring in the Tao. So this is the part that we say humans follow the earth. Then there's the sky. The sky with the clouds and the sun represents heaven. It also includes the winds, the rain, the weather. And beyond the sky, we know we see the sun, we know there's also the moon and the stars. And today, we know that much of what we see in the night sky can be planets, stars, even galaxies. This is the second connection. We know the Earth is going through changes in response to the heavenly transitions like seasons. But not just seasons. The most immediate transition that the ancients noted was day into night and night back into day. Even with that transition on a daily and nightly basis, the myriad things react accordingly. Many creatures, like humans, go from activity during the day to resting at night. But then there are also nocturnal creatures who are the reverse. And even before we get to the changing of seasons, there's the changing weathers. That is also another example where we follow the earth and the earth follows heaven. When the weather changes, we change our behavior and response. When it rains, we're much more likely to stay home. When it is sunny, we're more likely to engage in outdoors activities. And also, beyond the changing of seasons, in the very long duration, hundreds, thousands, millions of years, we know the landscape changes, sculpted by the weather. which are celestial forces. So that's the other connection. The earth follows heaven. So then the sage contemplates the heavenly Tao. This is the third connection. Heaven follows the Tao. Therefore, we're saying that there's a way of heaven. Heaven has a certain way about it. It is the unseen forces behind it all, holding everything together. In modern science, we may say, well, gravity fits that description. Universal gravitational force. The other aspect of it is what the ancients would think of as a universal kind of choreography. That is to say, everything happens at just the right time, not a moment sooner or later. That is the timing of heaven. All of these are the Tao, like clockwork. Heaven follows all of that with precision. And as the sage contemplates all of that, it is the great Tao that includes everything, all things in nature. This is the final connection from the Tao to nature, back to the Tao itself. Because Tao and nature are synonymous. Nature includes the myriad things. The myriad things include human beings. Therefore, the connectedness of all things in existence is essentially yet another manifestation of the great circle that we talked about. So, the last line by Lao Tzu is basically an encapsulating statement for all of the above. The Tao follows the laws of nature. This brings our line-by-line discussion and analysis of Tao Te Ching 25 to a conclusion. We are now ready to move on to the paraphrase. The purpose for the paraphrase, as always, is to demonstrate complete understanding on our part by expressing the original meaning with modern language. So it's not exactly like a translation. It's a rephrase or paraphrase. In the first section, as we have seen, it begins by talking about the formless Tao. It talks about the Tao being the source of everything and that it is circulating and ceaseless. So, to depict that, here's the paraphrase that I want to offer for your consideration. What is the Tao? It is a formless essence that existed before everything, even the universe itself. It is absolutely silent and ethereal, so it cannot be heard, seen, or touched. It is complete in itself, and its nature is eternally unchanging. It moves in circles, great and small, and it never stops. We can think of it as the mother of the material world. I do not know its name. I call it the Tao only as a label of convenience. If I am forced to describe it, the only thing I can say is that it's great. So that is the paraphrase for the first section. we're trying to capture all of the ideas that Lao Tzu has expressed. The second section, right below it, is a description of the Great Circle in poetic terms. So here's the paraphrase for section 2. Its greatness can be seen in the way it moves. Its circular path can be difficult to discern because it can move far beyond the perception before returning. Then we're going to move on to the third section, which is the beginning of the expressions about the interconnectedness of the various levels of existence. So here is the paraphrase for that section. The Tao is reflected throughout the different levels of existence. Therefore, its greatness is also reflected in heaven, earth, and the sovereign. This means if you are able to take charge of your life and become the sovereign of your own destiny, then the greatness of the Tao will manifest in you, just as it already does in heaven and earth. And now, the final section is a depiction of the connections among the levels. Here is the paraphrase for the last section. This is always the way it works because we are directly affected by the world. And the world is part of the universe. The universe follows the Tao, and the Tao follows itself, the laws of nature. So that is the paraphrase for the chapter. And now, the full circle discussion. We always do this to see if we can catch the hidden wisdom where Lao Tzu connects the end of a chapter to the beginning. In the last line of Tao Te Ching 25, Lao Tzu is talking about the connected levels of reality as we have seen, concluding with the Tao following nature. Those are the last lines. We connect this back to the beginning and we see Lao Tzu talking about the formless Tao as the origin or source of everything. So we are connecting the source of creation with the concept of being natural or being with nature. So the message is clear. Creation is a process where all things arise naturally, seemingly out of nowhere. How do we apply this to ourselves? At the personal level, this means we possess the same power of creativity. When we live in the Tao, we too can create what we wish in life, seemingly out of nowhere. And this is why Lao Tzu says, the Tao follows the laws of nature. The comments that I would like to share, the thoughts that I would like to share with this is basically to state that nothing can be more natural than you tapping into your inherent creativity. Now, some people do this all the time, and some people do it not as much. If this is not something that you do for yourself often, I would actually recommend that you make it a point to do more of this, to be creative. You can always start with something small. For instance, take a break from your routine, try something different. Even that is being creative. Now, the summary. Previously, we spoke of the Tao being formless, the Tao being the source, the Tao being unchanging, circular, and nameless. This time, we focus on the fundamental connectedness in the different levels of reality. Humans following the earth were earthbound after all, so we work within the limits of our environment. Then, earth following heaven. Everything in the world follows the heavenly timing of the universe. Heaven follows the Tao. And all things related to the universe, they all have a certain way. Even when we don't know them as laws of nature, we can sense their existence. And finally, the Tao follows nature. The Tao following nature, just as nature follows the Tao. And the last reminder is that the first one and last one are the aspirations for human beings. The first one, humans following the earth, that is, we are inspired by the virtues of the earth, and therefore we aspire to emulate them. And lastly, the Tao being natural, that is the path that we cultivate, to be natural, to be one with nature. So this concludes our entire presentation on Tao Te Ching 25. Share the Tao. The easiest way to access Tao resources is to visit my author website, dereklin.com. There, you can click on links and go to the web page where you will find everything listed, such as Taoism.net, with information about the Tao and also about this meeting. Our Facebook community, where you can ask questions or discuss your thoughts on the Tao with others. Our YouTube channel, where you can watch recordings of all our previous meetings. My Amazon author page, where you can find books and audiobooks for your continuing exploration. You can also go directly with a web address, dereklin.com/links, as you can see. You can use these resources to share the Tao with the people you know who may be interested. When you see the benefits of Tao cultivation in your life, you can share your experience with others through your comments in Facebook or YouTube. If you find my books or audiobooks to be helpful, you can post your reviews on Amazon to help others discover the Tao. This is the path that I am on, so I can say sharing the Tao has benefited me personally in every aspect of life. I would like to invite you to come along with me to share the Tao. Let us travel together on the path in the journey of life. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.